Well, hello everybody and happy holidays. Welcome to the first in a series of holiday reviews I'm going to do on my YouTube channel. And this is about films, TV shows, or specials that I grew up with. They're not necessarily related to a particular holiday, but they just kind of give me the ambiance of this time of the year. And they were specials I really enjoyed growing up. And the first of these I want to talk about is Frosty's Winter Wonderland. Now, Frosty the Snowman is my very favorite holiday character because I love snowmen. But I also just love Frosty. Even his voice calms me down. It's like Mr. Rogers or Big Birds from Sesame Street. It just immediately makes me feel better, and it transports me back to a simpler time when I was making core memories around this time of the year. Now, Frosty's Winter Wonderland is the sequel to the original Frosty the Snowman special made in 1969, which is great. And I love the original Frosty the Snowman, but it has been reviewed into the dirt. And I want to talk about a Christmas special that I think does not get enough recognition this time of the year, and that's Frosty's Winter Wonderland, and that's the sequel. It came out in 1972, and it is narrated by one of my favorite actors, Andy Griffith. Now, the original special was narrated by, I think it was Dumont was his name, an actor named Dumont. And he was just great, and I love his voice. But Andy Griffith is great, and we also get to hear Andy Griffith sing the songs in this special. And one thing a lot of people don't mention about Andy Griffith is his singing talent. He's a very talented singer, and on the Andy Griffith Show, he always flexes that. And it's good to see him in another franchise doing that as well. And I love Andy Griffith, but in the Frosty the Snowman universe, they always animate the narrator to look like the actor. And in this special, it always looks like Andy Griffith is a kind-hearted but very senile old man who has wandered away from his daughter's house in the middle of the night wearing his pajamas. And every time I see him, I'm like, Andy, go home. Your children are worried about you. Now, another thing. Now, Andy Griffith, he starts to tell us the story of Frosty the Snowman, which I think most of us know. It's about this snowman that these children wish to come to life through a magic hat. And he's like, well, kids, did you ever hear about the time when Frosty could just fucking get it? And, so Andy Griffith makes this proposition to us. Hey, I know you've heard the story of Frosty the Snowman, but did you also know that Frosty fucks? And, of course, the audience is like, no, Andy, please fill us in. So we pick up where the last story left off, where Karen took Frosty to the North Pole, and we see Frosty at the North Pole leaning against the actual North Pole, looking really bummed. And he tells the audience, I told the kids I would come back someday, as you know from the famous song. He says, but I don't know when someday is. Now, this brings up two very depressing points about Frosty the Snowman. First of all, Frosty doesn't know how to adult because he was made by a pack of feral 9-year-olds, came to life, and 12 minutes later he was tossed out into the world and just expected to function as a fully formed adult. Now, most humans get maybe 18 years to at least figure out the physics of the world. Like, gravity will pull you down and water is wet, but Frosty doesn't even know that. So, I don't know where people are getting off on saying Frosty's dumb. He isn't simple, he just doesn't have the information. And another depressing point about Frosty is, when I first watched this Christmas special when I was 10 years old, I just assumed that Karen and Oatmeal and Hocus Pocus the Rabbit and Mr. Hinkle were all just dead. Because Frosty is an immortal being, and I didn't see any of the original cast, in this movie, so I just assumed Frosty had outlived them all. He had been at the North Pole for like 90 years, and Karen's dead. So Frosty finds a newspaper that has blown up to the North Pole. I don't know why, for some reason. And he reads it, and he says, the headline says, "Someday Frosty will return," blah, blah, blah. And he's like, oh, today's someday, because Frosty is a very depressing character, and he slides off back to the town where he was created. Now, when Frosty gets to the town in the very next scene, you see him just, like, palling around with all the kids, like, everything's great, you know, Frosty is back. But I always think that when Frosty arrived in town, he was like, well, where is Karen? And the kids pulled a Nadine from Twin Peaks on him. And they were like, oh, Karen is out of town. And she will be for a few days, months, years, until you leave, Frosty. And he's like, oh, that's too bad. And they just never told him that all the people he knew and loved are dead. There's a scene where Frosty's at the North Pole writing a letter to all of his friends. And I'm like, Andy, all of Frosty's friends are dead. He's outlived them all. So I'm thinking when Frosty got back home, he had a very Flight of the Navigator type moment. We see the kids playing with Frosty, and they're like, Frosty's the best snow slider in the world. And that's when Frosty gets down on his belly and slides to the snow. And I'm like, but penguins do it every day, but, you know, go off. And this is where we see the movie's antagonist, and that's Jack Frost. Nope, not that one. Not that one, and definitely not that one, but this one. The Rankin Bass Jack Frost. I love this Jack Frost. The only reason he isn't on my top 10 Jack Frost is because he's not the one from Rise of the Guardians. This Jack Frost is fucking zesty, okay? So, Jack Frost, I really think Jack Frost just has a crush on Frosty, so he's always like, the kids are paying more attention to Frosty than to me. And he's really zesty. And I really think he just has a crush on Frosty, because if you listen to his rants, he's just talking about how hot Frosty is, or how cool, I don't know, he's a snowman. And he's like, Frosty's so sexy, I love him. And even when, like, Frosty slides up to him, like, Jack Frost greets him with, like, the coy anime girl wink. And I'm like, okay, Jack. we all know. Then the next scene we see Frosty takes the kids on a moonlit hayride, and I'm like, where are these kids' parents? Seriously, where are their parents? We don't see them in the original movie, we don't see them in the sequel, but they seem to be really cool with their children, palling around with ice demons, self-aware snow homunculus, and homeless old men. So, you know, it's whatever. So, the kids are like, Frosty, why don't you have a wife? And Frosty's like, oh, kids, you're making me more depressed than usual. And so, all the kids get together, and they're like, hey, let's just make Frosty a wife. And I'm like, wow, that's Stepford Wives vibes right here. So they do. They make a snow lady out of the snow. And the Andy Griffith's like, and they made her according to Frosty's specifications. And every time I think about them making the snow woman, Frosty's like, and make sure to make her extra thick. And one of the kids is like, oh, Frosty, are you sure you want her this thick? And she said, you heard what I said, you little ankle biter. You better make her thick. So they try to bring the snow lady to life with a bonnet belonging to one of the donkeys that were pulling the sleigh. The donkeys are so cute. They make me think of the Jack and the Jenny on My Little Pony Friendship is Magic. And then later on in the story, Jack Frost says, this is just a horse's hat. And I'm like, I don't know a lot of things, but I know these are not horses, okay? So then, Frosty gets really sad, and I think, you know, isn't this the perfect retelling of Frankenstein's monster, where we have, like, this creature, the supernatural creature being created out of nothing, and then he tries to replicate himself out of nothing. And that's something a lot of people don't talk about, Frosty the Snowman. It's just a genius retelling of Frankenstein's monster. So Frosty he sings a song about how about how brokenhearted he is. And then, so he sings a song about how brokenhearted he is, and he cries tears into his tears solidify into these ice crystal flowers, which he gives to the snow lady, which he names Crystal. And all this time I'm like, Frozen, eat your heart out. Like, this was true love, bringing snow people to life before Elsa was a thing. Like, they were doing it before it was cool. So then I also love how Frosty says to the kids, he says, she's not really alive, and that's not important, but it is kind of important. And every time I hear that, I think, Frosty, you are made of sentient snow, and you have more self-awareness and humility than all of the podcasters in the manosphere. So the snow crystals do their trick, and Crystal comes to life, and I love Crystal. I love right off the bat, she's sharper than Frosty. She's a little more sharper on the uptake of things. She's more emotionally aware, more emotionally intelligent. And I like that. She's not exactly like Frosty. Like, her personality isn't exactly like her very simple-minded but very lovable husband. And she's voiced by an actress named Shelley Winters, and I love that. The kids also try to name her like they do in the first movie, and they take suggestions, and they're like, we should name her Elizabeth. We should name her Tanya. And they're like, no. And then one kid's like, let's name her Cornflakes. And it's like the kid in the first movie who's like, let's name him Oatmeal. And I think that people think that's a stupid joke, but I'm like, that's exactly what having a little kid is like, and you get them a pet. And you're going to have a cat for like 20 years named fucking Bulldozer or Backhoe, you know, because that was your 3-year-old's favorite thing at the time you got the kitten. So, first of all, Crystal is adorable. She is so cute. She's like the bird woman on Home Alone 2, who's, by the way, so cute also. And then Jack Frost comes along, and Jack Frost is Jack Frost, and he's like, none of the kids are looking at me. And I'm like, what a fucking narcissist. Even Hannibal Lecter's like looking at this guy and being like, hey, Jack, tone it down a bit, bro. You're being a little too self-centered. And then he causes a windstorm to come along and blow the top hat off of Frosty, and Frosty dies in front of his wife's eyes. His wife, who just came to life. And I'm like, Jack Frost, you're a tool. And then Crystal's like, oh, gee, Frosty, I wish our sentience wasn't tied to physical objects. And then Frosty laughs in Voldemort. So then Crystal kisses Frosty and brings him back to life. And I'm like, okay, that's a little interesting tidbit of Frosty the Snowman lore. So now we can apparently bring snowmen to life with kisses. So we're just going to see a bunch of, you know, chodes out on the street making out with snow people is what I'm getting from this. And not to make another precipitation pun, but these snowmen are fucking thirsty. So then Crystal sings this really thirsty-ass song about how her and Frosty are gonna procreate, and we see all their snow babies, and there's 3 of them. And in the sequel, Rudolph and Frosty's Shiny New Year, you see Frosty and Crystal's 2 kids, who are named Chili and Millie, but we don't see the 3rd snow baby we saw in Crystal's dream, her vision of the future. And I'm like, where do snow babies come from? Seriously, do the children build them? Or, you know, is Crystal going to get pregnant and give birth like a mammal? Will she lay eggs? You know, how is this going to work? I need to know, like, did she, what happened to the 3rd snow baby? Did it melt? Did Crystal miscarry? You know, Snow Jesus forbid? I mean, what is reality? Seriously, are we in the Matrix? Are we in the Snow Matrix? So, yeah, Frosty the Snowman is a universe a lot like Toy Story or Equestria Girls. Like, if you think too hard about it, your brain will break into a million pieces. And then, Frosty's like, we need to get married. And they go find Parson Brown in the village, and Parson's like, I'm sorry, but I only marry people like me. And I'm like, I'm side-eyeing you, sir, with that bigoted talk. But then the parson's like, we should make a snow parson to marry the snowman. And I'm like, but you could do that. Okay, like, and we could do it in 3 minutes. And we could just say, I do, sir. You know, I'm side-eyeing you, parson, okay? You didn't stand in the way of my snow ship, but I'm side-eyeing you, sir. Okay, so then, we see Frosty and Millie, and they get married, and it's Frosty and Crystal, excuse me, I am so sorry. And then we see the temperature rising, and but before that, Crystal like reaches out to Jack Frost, and she's like, hey, you're the most important person here at the wedding because you're the best man. And I'm like, look at my snow lady with her emotional intelligence. I love you, Crystal. And so she tricks Jack Frost into being a good person. And I'm like, isn't that Frosty and Crystal, like redeeming their villains, always approaching them with diplomacy and love? I'm like, in a world of bad and greedy and manipulative people, be a Frosty the Snowman, be a Crystal the Snow Lady. That's what I say. And then the temperature starts rising, and they all get really concerned, and Jack Frost is like, hey, I'll just fuck with the climate. And everybody's like, no, Jack Frost, that's bad. We don't do that here. And then Crystal says, Frosty, we need to go home. And they parade through town, and the people are horrified. And I'm like, the snowmen have been here for 4 months. Andy Griffith says they've stayed until April. From Christmas until April. Do these townspeople, are they like the villagers on Beauty and the Beast? And they just don't notice these terrifying snow homunculus living next to their town? Are they like the townspeople in Hawks, Indiana? And they just don't notice this like research facility, you know, at their freaking doorsteps? I guess not. Okay, and then they leave on the train, and the kids are waving. They're like, goodbye, Frosty, goodbye, Crystal. Please come back, hopefully in our lifetimes, not like Karen, who you abandoned. And then we see Andy Griffith at the end, and he says, may all of your winters be wonderful. And then Frosty and Crystal say, and Frosty too. And that's what I am wishing you, my beautiful snow gentlemen, gentle snow women, and gentle non-binary polar people. Okay? I am wishing you that may all of your winters be wonderful, and Frosty too. Y'all have a very, very happy holiday season. Like, share, and subscribe. Comment, please, and let me know what you want to see. And stay tuned for more vibey holiday specials. We'll see you. Happy holidays. Woo!